Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Table podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kevin Hairston, and as always, we're bringing together leaders from across education, business, and community to talk about what it really means to lead with purpose, integrity, and impact. Today, I'm excited to welcome someone whose leadership has made a powerful difference in education and civic engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Jennifer Adair. She is a dedicated member of the Columbus City Schools Board of Education. Jennifer has been an advocate for educational equity, community collaboration, and ensuring that every child, regardless of their background, has access to high-quality learning opportunities. Jennifer, welcome to the Leadership Table. Let's start at the very beginning. I want to know what roles significantly impacted you to put you on this leadership journey?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you today. I think my journey started where most people start, and that's obviously the adults that influence you as a child. Really, I had my parents as well as a core set of teachers that really impacted me and really taught me the value of service. And that really stuck with me. So in high school, I had the great opportunity to be a student member of the Northwest Civic Association, which is like an area commission, but in Northwest Columbus. And I learned a lot there from my teacher who was guiding us, and then also being a participant, voting on matters that impacted the neighborhood, and really seeing what it meant to work with people, collaborate with people who were different than you, all for a joint goal. And so really developing the love of service. And so it was from those early times of my childhood. Plus, I'm the oldest daughter. And, just in like a family dynamic, like right. The oldest child does a lot of service to the family in different roles and feeling that sense of responsibility towards something has always carried me as well.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you mentioned going back and your parents were influential. But did you ever feel, especially being the oldest, did you ever feel like it prompted you into leadership because you're the older sibling, like that there was responsibilities put on you that put you into that leadership position that you feel when some of the things that you're doing now, when you look back, you go, okay, I get it. It didn't just start yesterday. It started a long time ago when I was a lot younger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess typically you would say like, that type A personality where, you are in everything and not just in it, you like are called to lead or serve in it. That has definitely been my journey throughout. Even on, sports teams, becoming the captain or after I went to law school and, was very active in law school, like, being in leadership there. Even coming out of law school, I actually came back on the Northwest Civic Association as an adult and was the youngest president of that organization. And so I never really seek out. It's a funny thing. Like, it's not like I seek out to be the leader. It just, it happens. And I think that, it's partly because of just the qualities I bring when I kind of enter the room, that sense of collaboration. I am the first to tell you, I don't know all the things. And, everybody as more of a collective has that. And so even when I came on the school board, I was appointed to fill someone's seat. And then when I ran for my first term, I actually became president, which is very unusual. To become president so quickly without having been on for at least a couple years.
So let's talk about that. I mean, because we definitely want to dive into the educational category. But did you ever see yourself being a board member? I mean, did you ever see yourself being an elected official? Or, because some people say, hey, my family was preparing me for this role. And then others say, hey, it was something that was kind of thrusted on me and I never seen it coming, but yet they do it as if they were made for it. But was that you?
So it's kind of a mix, maybe. I would never say I was thrust or groomed to do it. That isn't, I mean, I don't come from a family of politicians. I do come from a family of public servants. And so I always saw the elected office as that pure avenue for the highest public service, giving back to our community. And that's partly why I became a lawyer. Was this idea that understanding fundamentally the laws and what governs us as people was very important to me. So becoming a lawyer. And then my early career in law was all public service. And so for me, serving our community, trying to make it better for all is really why I do it. And so did I always feel like elected office was something I wanted to do? I did, but not for politics. And in fact, some might say I'm not a very good politician. Okay. But for the pure aspect of service. And so I had tried a couple times through appointment processes to become a board member. Education is something that has always been important to me. For me, whoever, is in control of education is in control of our democracy, in control of our future as a society. And so, education, my mom's a teacher. My grandfather was actually a superintendent. My dad was a first-generation college student. So just being educated is something that my family ingrained in us as something important.
So when you you made it to the school board, did families members look up like your mom or your grandfather and go, "We always knew it," or was there maybe a step back to go, "Wow, she actually went another level on this educational journey"?
I think it maybe was more of the first, because again, I'm like a self-driver. Like I when I kind of set my sight for something, like that's what I'm going for. And, for me, it really was about where do I feel like, and at the time, because honestly, this answer might be different now. Where at the time do I feel like I could serve my community the best? I made the transition. I moved to North Linden. I became an area commission chair there for many years. And then, decided to apply for that open seat because I felt like education at that moment was the space. And I know you are a man of faith. And so there was a reason I was put there.
Right.
The moment I was, in all that we had to deal with the next 6 years after, for me to sit in that seat.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, even when you talk about faith, because some people would suggest that our leadership roles or whatever role that we play, whatever dynamic that we're adding to making a difference in someone else's life is a calling, and there's been a number of individuals who, like you said, who may have a political ambition, but then there's others who are really driven because they care about the community. And it takes being that type of person who's in the room to make a difference. But let me ask you this. I mean, one of the things that when I was looking at your story, and I think you told me this years ago too, I think I knew this already, but you're a Columbus City Schools graduate as well.
I am.
If I'm correct,
That's correct. Centennial.
Centennial. Oh, okay.
It's fine. I love cause too.
Let's make it right. Okay. Centennial, because there's going to be a lot of alumni that go, I'm happy that's one of ours, don't get it twisted. But being, and I'm a graduate of Columbus City Schools too, did it give you a sense of pride to really say, hey, here's an opportunity to give back to the same system that helped me develop as a young person?
Absolutely. I mean, but for, right, the teachers I had, I'm Columbus Public Schools,
right.
From kindergarten to 12th grade. But for that education, the opportunities, the all of the staff, not just teachers, I had, custodians and office help, administrators. But for them, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And that's too when I say the power of education. It isn't just the things that we are teaching our kids in the classroom. It's that whole life experience and that support network. And I think at the time, it's funny, I pulled out my yearbooks last night because I had to get some pictures out of them for something. And I'm just flipping through them and I'm just like, I just remember it being such a sense of community
Right.
and love.
Right.
And, it was one of those golden periods, I think, in the 90s.
Right.
Before cell phones, before like the kind of like I mean, I have a high school student right now. I mean,
Right.
it's a lot different. Who's at Centennial?
Yeah.
So a lot different. But it was really that really shaped who I am today. And so yes, absolutely. Making sure that the students and the communities and the families that are tied to CCS right now had the same better experiences than I did is really important to me.
Well, let me ask you that. I mean, because I think that's a real important point that a lot of viewers, for those who are connected to the city of Columbus, those who are connected to Columbus City Schools, when you go back to that, everybody has a golden period. I was talking with a pastor who was an alumni of East High School, and so East High School has a golden period. I'm an Independence 76ers. We always say there was a golden period. As a school board member, when you look at the system now, I mean, are there moments when someone would actually say, hey, Jennifer, I think you forgot about what it meant to be a student, or perhaps you have a young person that goes to Centennial, but maybe you forgot, or is that a driver? Like, I'm reminded of that golden period, and I want to give them the best that they could possibly get, at least in this generation, that comes close to that.
Yeah, I think it's this is what I say, because we as Columbus have such strong community ties around each of our high schools, because we are really high school driven. So, you say, oh, you're from Columbus, what high school do you go to?
Right.
That is literally the first question, right? And so we have such a tie. Today, though, the ties are different.
Right.
And so what I say to people is, let's honor our legacy, but build the future for the students and communities who are here now, because it is different. And so I do think it's important for us to remember what the feeling was, the experiences we got, what we loved about it, or even things we wanted to change, and then listen to our community and our children today, because we also cannot put our legacy on top of them, because it doesn't work. This isn't education is completely different than when, or should be completely different than when I was in high school.
Well, it's funny that you say that. This was years ago, and I gotta tell everybody this was years ago. But I remember I was in another part of Ohio, or I might have even been out of the state. I can't remember. But someone said to me the same thing. They said, "Oh, I'm from Columbus," and I remember going, "Well, what school did you go to?" And I'm not going to say the name of the school, but it was a suburban school. And I remember my reaction is, "You're not really from Columbus."
Right. That's not Columbus.
And now, but and that was dated some years ago. Now we see where Central Ohio has a blended relationship, and so people are migrating, beyond 270 or sometimes inside of 270, and it's kind of become a holistic system to say we're trying to do this together. There are some dynamics that are different, but we are trying to do this together. But you also said something earlier too, as a graduate, and then here I am a graduate of the Columbus City Schools. One of the things when we always talk about the narrative that the story that Columbus City Schools is really trying to shine a light on, and that is the graduates. I mean, the real prominent. I mean, we've had some wonderful graduates come through the city school system that I think sometimes, Jennifer, it doesn't get mentioned enough. In terms of some of the politicians, athletes that have gone on to be professional in professional athletics, business people. There's a lot of people who come through the doorways of Columbus City Schools that sometimes we miss, that at one point in time they were students as well.
Let's remember, Columbus City Schools, Columbus Public Schools is over 175 years old. And we do have a long, sordid history, but you're absolutely right. The truth is, we have had amazing graduates of our institutions in modern times and historic times. Our district was among some of the first to address social issues around racism and opening schools for all children. And, we certainly have our challenges, but we have such a strong history. And it is by design that we do not talk about it.
Right.
Especially in more modern times, the narrative is on purpose that we are a failing district, that we produce children or graduates that cannot perform. And that's absolutely not true. And this is where we come up against the system. And we have to remember as a community what is valuable to us and who we are as Columbus and Columbus City Schools, and kind of understand how the system is putting this narrative over us and other urban districts, to be quite honest, about how we are graded or scored or what we're looked at or how we're funded and all of that stuff. And really think about, try to think about it a little bit more in the lens of what do we really know as a community and what do we really value? Because I would put any of our kids up against anybody.
Right.
I mean, our students, our graduates, have life experiences. They are performing well. Our CTE pathways, which, we talked about, this podcast we were talking about before we started filming, we have nearly a 5-star rating in the state in our CTE pathways. We are doing amazing, amazing things. And we have amazing graduates. And what I would love is if our graduates would stand up. Right? Instead of feeling like maybe it, they, I just went to Columbus, like, I just went there. I mean, be proud.
Regaining that sense of pride. And I remember I had this conversation with a couple pastors that actually had graduated from Columbus City Schools, and we had that same thing. I mean, we were all in the room representing different schools, but each one of us had that pride. And we said the same thing that you're saying. We said we noticed that sense of pride, that unity within your own school system is kind of falling away a little bit. And here we are a lot, decades later, and we still, we were laughing and joking because one guy said his school and I said my school, and it was kind of almost like we're back on the playground again,
like rivals.
We're better than you, That was like 40 years ago.
Yeah, right. It doesn't fade. It doesn't fade.
And that's what we were saying. We were like, no matter how old we get, we feel that way, but we don't see that in a lot of the students. But even keeping with the Columbus City School theme, being a board member, when you finally got there, I mean, you just said your journey, you got appointed. And then following that, you became president. Some will say, hey, wow, that was a lot to take on. I mean, especially, here you are, you're just kicking off the training wheels in terms of getting used to the system in and of itself, and you're thrusted in that level of leadership. Looking back at that roadmap, was there anything where you say, okay, the Jennifer today will tell the freshman Jennifer on the board, maybe do it this way, or maybe perhaps, you got it on that part. Were there any lessons that you've learned that when you look back, you go, I'm glad I grabbed that quality?
I mean, I think there's always lessons that you can learn. That's such an important leadership quality. But I also am someone that, I can't go back and do the what if, should if, because it's in the past, right? So it's a learning opportunity. I think that when I came on, there was we just had, I came in for someone that resigned when I was appointed. And so there had been some shuffling on the board of who was there. They also had just done a superintendent search. So a new superintendent was coming in as well. So the district was in a lot of kind of internal shifting. And so I think that one of the things, if I could go back and tell my freshman self, is to really, understand that the system is very complex and you're not going to pick it up. Like, still to this day, I am learning things about, this is how that, really?
Right.
And so, just trying to, continue to ask more questions, dig deeper. I had a lot of people when I first got on the board tell me actually the advice from some colleagues was to not say anything my first year. and to just listen,
Okay.
which is good advice, but also you need to be able to question, but learn to question in a way that really draws out introspection and not feeling like people are being targeted, if that makes sense. But my first, when I became president, we had a new superintendent, so she's learning, I'm learning. The past president was off the board, so there was no transition between us in terms of exchange of ideas. There were, the vice president was still on the board from the year before. Then a couple months in, we had COVID.
Okay.
And so, and in fact, unfortunately, at the time, our superintendent had a major death in her family, so she wasn't even here. So I had to stand up in front of the community and be the one to tell them school was closed. And so kind of thrown in, right, in COVID, trying to understand the system with a new superintendent who was bringing in new administrators, trying to learn my board, learn how to be a leader in this organization. It was hard. And in some of those moments, because we're all at home now, right? It felt very lonely and isolating because we couldn't just reach out. We couldn't go have coffee with someone. And we're all trying to adapt to new life, right?
Right.
So I think, too, another thing I would say and what I'm really trying to work on now is in more of those hard times, self-care, reflecting, being honest with yourself about where your personal limit is, asking for more help. And so those are things that I would tell my freshman self as well.
Oh, that's good. That's really good because you mentioned about self-care, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But, one of the things that I've noticed, even when it comes to especially the board, and I think every board of education across the United States probably would attest to this, that it's a not easy job. You're elected. You're definitely not doing it for the money.
Can we clear that up right now? Let me just say that right now. So in Ohio, all board members, no matter what size of district you are on, you can't make more than $5,000 a year.
Right. So you're not doing it.
This isn't right. Absolutely. And it's considered a part-time position. So all of us have daytime jobs.
Right.
It's not like city council.
Right.
We don't have offices. We don't have staff. We don't, that's not the way this is designed.
But given that whole picture, some will say maybe one question, well, why in the world would you want to do it? And then other people will say, okay, once you get past, I do it because I'm passionate about education and wanted to see kids succeed and do better in life. The real question becomes, it's almost as if you can never, and this is the landscape, and I can say this because I'm not elected, but it almost seems as though no matter which way you turn, there's going to be a crowd out there that goes, you didn't do it the way I wanted it done. And so if I turn to the right and make a decision, there's a crowd over to my left who says, I wish you would have done it my way. Then if I turn to the left, the people to the right say, I wish you would have done it my way. As a leader, how do you navigate your decision-making when you know the waters are like that?
I've said this to some of my superintendents I've worked with, if we can make people mad equally, then we know we have made the right decision. And that sounds weird because I don't want to make anybody mad. I think part of it is, and again, it's partly the way that our system is built around education. It's partly the way our internal systems are built. We do not communicate our vision very well about where we think education should go. And then we do not communicate these external threats to education very well because they're hitting us so fast, especially right now, that it's very hard to turn around and do that. And so, I know a lot, no matter what side you're on, the community says, well, you didn't come talk to us enough.
Right.
You did not come talk to us enough. And sometimes it's hard because we think we are. You've been on task force.
Yeah.
We think we are. We think that we are setting things up in a way that is, gathering input. We're trying to, but, people are busy. They can't hear it until they hear it. And so, trying to be mindful of that. But then other times, it does feel rushed to us too, because we're up against an external threat where we need to actually make an action. And here's the part about the transparency and trust we hear about.
Right.
Then our community is like, well, wait a minute, we're not sure we trust you to make that decision.
Right. Well, but you know what? And I would say, as a person who at one point in time ran and loves his school system and has stayed involved, I have become an advocate for, when people throw out the word transparency and trust. Jennifer, one of the things, when I hear that click word, I always think there's click words that we use, especially in our society, and transparency and trust is one of them. And I go, well, what does that mean to you?
Right.
And so they say, well, I want them to be transparent. I said, well, I know they send text messages. I know they send emails. I know they did community meetings. What would you do if you want more transparency? Well, I think we should meet. Well, what does meet look like? And so we tend to throw those words out. And when you start saying, okay, I get it, you really want them to plain, because someone said to me not too long ago, even in reference to the task force, they said, well, they met it in the afternoon. And I said, well, if we met in the evening people would get upset that you're taking dinner time. And so it was kind of like a back and forth where you want transparency, but when it's rolled out, you're still arguing that it's not done in a fashion that suits you. And so as a leader, I guess my question would be is, it seems as though sometimes the board historically, not always, but has found itself in hot water with the community because the community feels maybe perhaps decisions are getting made behind closed doors and we haven't been a part of it. So how do you deal when they start to think that way?
I 100% what you just said. And that is, and part of that is the historical nature of the board itself as an institution, right? The district and the board, right? And so the community holding on to those pieces, I'm going to say, a really data scandal.
You're right.
I wasn't on the board then, right? But I'm on the board now.
Right.
So, these historical pieces where there truly was some things that the community should have been concerned about. And kind of looping back to that as this fallback mechanism. But the community is also right about communication and again, it's not really transparency because it's all there. It's the way that we are being able to communicate it in a way that can be heard.
Right.
That's the problem. Right. And we talked about this before we got on air too, just like generational differences in the way that we want and need communication.
Right.
It's very difficult to, and again, I mentioned that the board members do not have staff. So we are relying on our district, we're relying on our superintendent to help us create these opportunities, right? And we are large. We're a huge district. We have a lot of people.
You're the largest.
We are in the state, right? And so, but it's important, and we have multiple languages. We have people at all different levels, people that work at night, people that, we love our community. And we know, and I take personal responsibility about that. Like, how do we communicate better? Always asking that question. Right. And so even now, we're going to have some town halls this coming week. Right. Complaints about why are they back to back to back. I agree. I don't know. Right. I said that. And they're all at night. Right. And I said, well, can we have options for online where we are? Right. And so, board members are pushing back on these things. We do hear it. Right. But it's hard because internally we have a smaller staff because we're cutting. Right. They are also doing all the things all the day for schools and trying to, communicate those messages. We're being hit externally by all these threats on public education and particularly CCS. Right. And so everyone is trying to handle all the things.
Well, let me ask you that. I mean, in the midst of all of that, we still find where families, they don't use these words, but I know for a fact that people speak it out loud. But we can see the inequities that take place. In certain areas, we feel as though they may be a little bit more prominent in terms of their income levels, but they're still part of the CCS family. But maybe perhaps they're getting resources that we don't get on this side of town. When I was on the task force, when I was on the south side of town, the Mare Franklin area said, hey, we want to see this type of stuff happening. I grew up out on the east side, and so I'm an advocate for those things. But how do you speak to that? How do you ensure that families who are part of the system feel as though the city schools, the district, is making sure that they're balancing equity all over the city?
So I actually professionally am in equity. Like, that's what I do, equity. And that's where my background kind of led me to, both in law and in profession. And so that was one of the things I wanted to bring to the board. And if we look at our governing goals that were set up when I was president, that we're still using right now, that alignment of equitable resources is one of our guardrails. I will tell you, though, this inequity that exists in our district was not just created yesterday. It wasn't created 5 years ago. It wasn't even created 10 years ago. Inequity started back in the 70s when we started to desegregate. And it was choices that not just the school district made, but our city made as public policy. And so we have a lot to overcome. And so the board, and when we talk about, the work of the task force and this current realignment of our school district, it is really designed to try to address some of these equity or inequitable experiences that our families are experiencing, because it is true. And it's weird because it's external things, but again, it's internal choices too. Like, for example, the way that our open enrollment is set up. We have a lot of families that go all over town for various reasons because they don't feel like their homeschool is the thing. I'm one of those families. I'm part of our own problem. And so if we had places, we had schools, we had communities where families didn't feel like they had to choose, that would address some of the inequity that does happen. We also have inequity because, like you said, different neighborhoods, our city is very economically segregated.
Right.
It's becoming less racially, but we have a lot more. We have flight happening that we aren't really talking about.
Right.
And so we have a lot of economic segregation, and that does impact the schools. And when we say we want to try to get back to those kind of regional or home schools, that's another thing we're going to have to continue to address. But it's bigger, right? It's historical, it's public policy driven, and there are some internal policy choices that we right now are trying to unfold to get there.
So how do you tell, if you're talking to other family members, you're talking to parents, you're talking to students, what's the messaging for them to feel comfortable? Because you're right. Hey, and I heard a school board member tell me this one time, and they said to me, hey, Doc, that I wasn't on the board when that happened. And I said, unfortunately, when people see the board, you're kind of thrusted in there, and it's not you personally, but it's the whole system that people lose trust in. And so when you talk about historically, that says to me it's been chipped away years ago, decades ago. There was things happening that chipped it away. How do we get to a restoration? How do we get to or will we ever get to a place where people feel comfortable with the school system?
I hope so. That's what I'm working towards. I will tell you what's difficult is that the truth is the system, exactly what is happening now is by design. Like, I know that sounds a little conspiracy theory, but if you look at the way that the public policy has been stacked up, you look at the way our state has kind of put a lot of restrictions around public education and some of the actions that they're doing now, right now it's a hard thing as a board member because we're fighting every day for our schools, but we're also fighting for the whole system.
Right.
Because there's a serious threat to public education. And I started this off by saying, for me personally, whoever is in control of our public education system is in control of our democracy and in control of our future. And that's the fight we're all in, like across the state and across this country right now around public education. And by having our own communities have the mindset that what they're getting is subpar or what we're producing is subpar is all part of the strategy. And, the way that we're funded, the way that we are up against, we're the most heavily regulated government. Like we got people telling us all over the place what to do and what we can't do.
Right.
It becomes really, really challenging. And so I would just say for community, get involved, ask questions, listen, and try to take that step back. And especially if you're a CCS grad, I know it's really hard because we love our schools.
Right.
We got big stuff coming, big things changing that have to happen for our kids. And it's going to be scary, especially if you're alumni, because I want to tell you something. I personally have failed if in 20 years we still have the same high schools we do now.
Right.
Because it can't be. And so we got to stop. We got to stop trying to make our students live in our legacy.
Right.
Embrace our legacy, love our legacy. It's still our legacy.
Right.
But advance it to the future.
That's a good point. And thank you for sharing that, especially for those who are alumni, put your seatbelt on. But let me shift gears just a little bit in reference to you. You're a woman, you're a mother, you're a leader, you're a smorgasbord of a lot of different things.
I think I've ever been called a smorgasbord before.
Well, I mean, I always think like the Golden Corral. I'm picking over here, I'm picking over there, I'm picking over there. That's what makes those places great. But you carry a lot of roles.
Yep.
I mean, you carry a lot of titles. I mean, you're taking care of your family,
yep.
and you're being a mom. You've got a young person in high school, and just all the activities. How do you balance that? How do you on one hand be a role model, especially to other little girls who are coming out? And one of the things that I said to somebody one time, Jennifer, I think you might be able to appreciate this, but they was like, why do you do it? I said, because when I see some of these young African-American men in the school system, regardless of what age they are, because I went through K through 12, I said, I see Kevin. And I said, and matter of fact, and I made this joke, I said, matter of fact, some of them are probably sitting in this chair that I sat in.
Probably.
And it might be the same chair. All right, yeah. Columbus, we got to get a little better. It might be the same chair.
We got the PI levy. New chairs are coming. New chairs
are coming.
We have a lot of new chairs in buildings.
But I said, but that's Kevin. That young person is Kevin, who didn't know he'd be doing some of the things that he's doing today. He wouldn't have the educational success that he's had today. That student. So if I could do it, that student can do it. So it becomes my motivation. What do you say to young ladies who look up to you and they see you in all the dynamics of what you do? How do you continue to be their role model?
Yeah, what's funny about that is people say things, like they've said things to me in the past, like, wow, you just seem to got it all together. You were built for this. You really can stand up in the face of like scrutiny and hard times, and you seem to keep going. So that public persona, that hard mask is sometimes it's barely hanging on. And I think that we as leaders have to do better about talking about the true impact this has on your heart, your soul, your family, because people don't understand. Because we are told that stuff is very vulnerable and weak. And so, I've really, truly been going through the last 2 years a very deep self journey with myself, my faith, like my soul, to really figure out, am I still in the right place for what it is I want to do, and protecting, my family, and doing those things I'm passionate about. Because the truth is, I don't think anybody is built for it solo. Like, you have to have that support system around you.
Right.
And so what do I tell young girls? Like, go for your dream. Like, do it. You have the skills, but make sure you have that community behind you who really can see you and value you, because this is hard. Right. And it only gets harder every day we go. I'm not going to, to be really honest and truthful, I mean, my 15-year-old daughter, when we went through that teacher strike, I was the face.
Right.
I mean, I was the spokesperson. I had to get up and to talk.
Right.
But she got a lot of target from that, from grown-ups. And so, you have to like really have that hard kind of look about what does it mean holistically for everything, and not to lose yourself in it.
Right. Now, Jennifer, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. Thank you for coming on the leadership table. And to all of you who are watching and listening, I think Jennifer becomes an example of someone who displays a level of service, provides us a level of empathy, and the willing to show up and do the work. And so I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank all of you for watching. Again, there's always room for you at the leadership table. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Remember to always keep the faith.
Boxland Media. Think big.